Hey guys, so this is going to be my May wrap up. I did not film one for February, March, or April. I ended up getting really sick in February, and then March and April I had a lot of anxiety surrounded by COVID-19, so I didn't really have the mental capacity to really do anything, let alone read. Now for the month of May, we are still under a stay-at-home order, so I've been living in my pajamas since March, and I'm in desperate need of a haircut. But good news is that I am back on track with my reading and things are starting to pick up for me, and I feel a little bit more focused than I have the past couple of months. I am going to include at the end of this video the 5 physical books that I read this month in separate clips because I have already put those books in my car and they were already dropped off to the little free libraries in my area whenever I was out and about getting my groceries. So the first 5 books that I read at the beginning of this month were a series called Ace Security. It's about these 3 triplet brothers. 2 of them have military backgrounds, they're retired military, and the 3rd triplet brother is more of like the techie nerdy kind of guy, and something tragic happens to their father and they decide, you know what, we need to make a security company that helps not only women but men too, because men are also abused and they need to have someone they're comfortable going to when they feel like they need that extra protection. So they create this company, and that is kind of what all 5 of these books are based off of. I will tell you, you do need to read these in order because they're all intertwined and connected, and that is why when I'm explaining these I really can't say a whole lot, but I'll try to give you a general idea of what each book is about. The first one is called Claiming Grace, and this is about a woman named Grace, and she appears to have it all. She appears to have the job, the money, the family, the happy life. She has it all. But what you don't know is that outside forces are actually controlling all of her actions, and she's not as carefree as you think. There is romance in each one of these books, so she is falling in love with somebody within these stories. So I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to spoil who it ends up being. And you got Claiming Alexis, which is book 2, and this is about a rich woman who is tired of being stereotyped as just not having to do anything and not working a day in her life. So she goes and starts working for Ace Security and becomes undercover and gets involved with a gang and causes some problems. So that's her story plus the love interest that happens there. Then you have Claiming Bailey, which this one was my personal favorite. I gave that one 4 stars, where the other 4 that I read, they're all 3-star reads, but Claiming Bailey was my favorite. It's about Bailey's journey. She was in a gang and she took off, and the gang leader is not happy. He wants her back, and she has up and disappeared, and Ace Security gets involved somehow. Again, like I said, you'll find out how in the book before it. But yeah, so that's her story, and of course she falls in love with somebody. And this one threw me for a loop. I did not see it coming. It was Claiming Felicity. I did like it. I would say this would probably be my 2nd favorite. It's about a woman named Felicity, and she isn't who she claims to be. Then the last one is Claiming Sarah. This one is about a nurse who feels like she's being a little too careful. Like, she doesn't think that what's happening with her isn't really that big of a deal, but like in her gut she knows it is. Then I picked up The Mother-in-Law. I picked this up because it was like a book club read. I follow several different book clubs and it sounded interesting, but I gave this one 2 stars. It's by Sally Hempworth. It just wasn't for me, guys. It wasn't a bad book. And anytime I'm rating a book, it's based on my personal like feelings towards it. It just wasn't for me. The other people in the club that were reading it You know, some of them gave it 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars. It's kind of all over the board. But what I came to realize is that I just wasn't about the family drama, and that's what this whole book is centered around. Take that one with a grain of salt. The next one that I picked up was the Bromance Book Club. I'm sure you guys have heard this one going around all over the place if you watch anybody on BookTube or Bookstagram. I finally was able to get my hands on it. I gave it 4 stars, 3.5, 4 stars. It's about this baseball player whose marriage is falling apart, and his buddies are in this club and they tell him about it, and it's basically they read a ton of romance novels and try to open their minds to like what women want out of these romance novels. I don't know. Like I said, 3, 4 stars. I'm going to just call it a 3.5. I enjoyed it. It was cute kind of thing. And I did put the second book on hold. So if that tells you anything, I liked it enough that I'm going to read book 2. The next one that I picked up is called Royally Screwed by Emma Chase. I gave this one 3.5 stars. It's about this prince who has to get married because he has to have an heir, and the princess has to fit these qualifications, and it's his story falling for the girl that just doesn't bow to his every whim. I really liked it, but I'm a sucker for those prince picks the, you know, rebel girl stories, so what can I say? The next one that I grabbed was book 2 of this one, and it's called Royally Matched by Emma Chase, and this is about the brother of the prince. So it's his story of him falling for his princess, and he is like the rebel bad boy, so of course he falls for the very quiet, reserved girl who has no interest in him whatsoever because she doesn't want the attention of being a princess. I did give that one 3 stars. I didn't like it as much as the first one, but again, they weren't bad. Okay, so the next one that I picked up was The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. I gave this one 3 stars. It was hard for me to follow because it was a fantasy, so I was trying to understand the world within this fantasy book. And then on top of that, there's 3 different characters and their journeys within it. And I got lost and I got really confused. And I couldn't quite keep up somehow. I don't know. It wasn't bad. It was 3 stars. Am I going to pick up the second book? Probably not, just because I couldn't keep up with the first book. So I don't even think I'm going to be able to keep up with the second book. I was so confused. So I just don't think that's a fantasy book for me. I can't even tell you what it was about because, like I said, I got confused. Like, I'm not even 100% sure what I read. So you'll have to look that one up. But a lot of people love it. And if you love fantasy, adult fantasy, check it out. Read the description about it. It might be up your alley. Because I couldn't keep up with that fantasy, one of the people that follow me on Goodreads suggested that I grab The Daughter of Smoke and Bones, which I already had on my Kindle and just never got around to reading. That one's by Laini Taylor. And I did give this one 3.5 stars. It is a YA fantasy. And I liked it, but I could definitely tell that it is a YA fantasy. So I feel like that one was just a little too young for me. But then I've got the adult fantasy to where I was like, wait a minute, too much is going on and I'm getting lost. So I just haven't found that perfect fantasy series yet. And the last one that I read, besides the 5 physical books you're going to see in separate clips here in just a second, was Almost Just Friends by Jill Chavez. This is about a woman who was left to raise her 2 siblings from the age of 13 on, and they're now well into their adulthood, and she still feels like the parent. She doesn't know how to switch from being the parent figure to being the sister, and that's really hard for her. I definitely connected with this character. I could relate with her in so many different ways, but something tragic happened to their parents, and that's what left her to have to sit there and help raise her siblings. So I really loved it. I gave it 4 stars. I'm gonna go ahead and show you the 5 physical books that I read. In Cabin 10, I didn't love this one, guys. It's by Ruth Ware. I was confused through majority of the book, and I even asked my friend who's like an avid reader, and she said that it wasn't one of her favorites either, so I don't really feel too bad about this one. Yeah, I'm not even going to give you a synopsis on it because I just didn't love it. And then I also read Jojo Moyes, The Ship of Brides. This is a historical fiction about women who are married to men in the military. I think this is like around World War II, I want to say. It was like the end of it, and it's focused mostly around this character, Frances. I mean, I liked it, but I didn't love it as much as The Giver of Stars. Called Sting by Sandra Brown. Jody gets herself into some trouble because of her brother, and her brother has something held over her head because of what happened when they were kids. So she gets wrapped up into this whole dangerous situation. I gave this one like 3.5 stars. Frederick Backman's A Man Called Ov. I've heard this pronounced so many different ways. I even checked with the audiobook to see, and it was like Ove in another way. I don't know. So forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, but I've heard it so many different ways from people that have talked about the book, from the audiobook itself. It was like said 2 different ways. So I don't know the true pronunciation of this one. But what I can tell you, it's about a grumpy old man. It's kind of sad. I don't know what to really say about this book, but I gave it like 2 to 3 stars for me. It was just kind of like meh. Was 3 Wishes by Leanne Mority. It's about these 3 triplets. You know, they just kind of go through life and their relationships, and I mean, it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. So that's everything, guys. I hope you found maybe 1 or 2 interesting, and hopefully next month I'll have a little bit more to talk about, but we'll see because it is summer break, so it's very hit and miss how much I'm gonna read. But I'll see you guys next month for another book wrap up. Bye.